welcome to Who Corner to Corner podcast. As always, my name is Jeff. Well, it is always.
It is always your name.
It is always Jeff.
Except on a Saturday night, maybe.
Yeah, I've asked you not to tell anyone about that.
Well, that's your private Twitter account, yeah.
And your name, as always, except on a Friday night, is Paul.
It is. Thank you for reminding me of that, Jeff. That's that's reassuring, I think. So, yeah. Many thanks, mate.
You're welcome.
Much obliged. Yeah.
So, hello and welcome to this episode of our podcast. So, first of all, we're going to just want to let you know that we've added something to our podcast
yes, we have.
Service. So if you go to our website, which is whoc2c.buzzsprout.com, you'll see a little box that says become a supporter of the show, and you can click the little heart icon to support the show by paying a couple of dollars a month, whatever you feel you might want to do to support the show if you're enjoying listening to us. But before you perhaps do that, we want to be able to offer you something in return other than just our witty banter and Doctor Who guests. So let us know.
To be honest, you can't put a price tag on the witty banter.
Well, that is true, yeah.
It takes a lot of prep to get that right, that's for sure.
So let us know what you might like from us. We'd like, if we develop a Patreon style kind of subscription service, we'd like to be able to put a bit more into it. So maybe it's something like a sticker that we can send out, or a pin badge or something. Maybe we turn our essential Doctor Who episodes that we've been doing into subscriber exclusives. Might be that we can do extended guest chats in there or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We could do that if we get our schedule going at more than last minute planning. We might be able to offer episodes up a bit early if you're interested. So let us know. If no one tells us anything, then perhaps we won't bother to do anything. So it's back on you.
Scrap that idea, Jeff.
So, yeah.
It's a good idea, but it ain't going anywhere, so never mind.
No one responded. So this week for the podcast, we want to do our usual, which is spread a bit of positivity and
a bit of love.
Some love for Doctor Who. And I must say, actually, we've had a number of messages from people recently, haven't we, telling us that they just discovered the podcast and that they have really enjoyed listening to it, which is always great to hear. But they seem to be surprised that we actually like the show.
I know. That's weird, isn't it?
Which is bonkers.
Why would you do a podcast on a thing you actually like and talk enthusiastically and positive about it? I demand the answers. Yeah. Right now, I want to know.
So we thought we'd carry on that trend. So recently we put out a couple of tweets asking what made you love Doctor Who? What was the moment that perhaps what was the moment that made you fall in love?
The lightning in a jar. If you could capture that, what does it look like?
Yeah,
that was quite good, wasn't it?
What little moments, or what are your reasons for loving it? So, Paul, we've kind of talked a little bit about ours before, but why don't you kind of talk a bit about why you love Doctor Who?
Why do I love Doctor Who? Yes, it's a very good question, Jeff. I'm not entirely sure I know the answer. It's an accumulation of lots of different things. There's a massive nostalgia kick, which I think gets everybody. If you discovered the programme at an early enough age, perhaps, and then you become a few years older, you kind of look back on these things with fondness, that wonder and excitement and the whole fantasy and the sci-fi and the TARDIS police box and the Doctor generally just being a manic figure of chaos as they sort of speed through different adventures, the danger, the excitement, the scrapes, the cliffhangers, the companion perils, all of that stuff. It's all good. And just the sheer fun of it, I think, as well. I don't think there's any other show which approaches its material with such joie de vivre constantly from year to year. It's quite unique in that, and I just love it, mate. To be honest, I really do. I think it's it continues to excite and enthrall. That all sounds really cliched. I'm not. Sounds like I'm not actually talking from a very personal. I'm just throwing loads of adjectives out, but it's I don't know. It's a difficult one to pin down. I guess nostalgia value, as I said, and all of that stuff. And I just I don't think I could ever really hate it. To be honest, that's the thing. There might be certain bits of it that I perhaps don't quite like, but actually, they're really, really minor. They're not worth the hassle. On the whole, it's just a really wonderful show to lose yourself in for an hour or so each week when it's on.
Yeah.
What about you then, Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's a show unlike anything else out there, really. I think the core concept of a very different type of hero travelling the universe to help people and meeting aliens and going back in time and going forward in time and going to alien planets. It's I just think it's an amazing concept, and I think creatively the show, it has unlimited possibilities. It can do anything. It's quite flexible within its its boundaries. I also, from a sort of TV production point of view, admire everyone who works on the show, because it's, again, unlike anything else. 1 week you're in London a couple of centuries ago, then you're in the future, and it's different every time. And I don't know if people really kind of understand how hard a show like this is to pull off. Is that your private jet landing?
It is, yeah.
Okay. For me, like a bit like you said, really, I watch the show, and it's that comfort thing for me, really. It makes me happy. I enjoy the adventures that the doctors, the companions, and I always loved the show, from when I sort of was first watching it with McCoy in it, and then when Whittaker came along, I just kind of fell in love with the show again, sort of all over again, really, in a way that, made me love it more than ever. I kind of... doubly, fell for it.
Doubly. So what was your lightning in a bottle moment then? When did you decide that this is a thing that you love? Was it an immediate shift, or was it a gradual dawning?
I suppose there was probably a number of sort of moments, really. I remember watching it with Sylvester was the Doctor, and I was probably 8 or 9 or something. Obviously the world was very different there, didn't have online and all of that kind of stuff. But
no such thing as cars, even telephones. Wow, what a luxury!
I used to have to wind the telly up to make it work.
50p in the meter.
Yeah. But I enjoyed it enough that I wanted to watch it. When it was on each week, and then when it obviously went off air, and then it came back. With Paul McGann, I remembered it enough to think, I enjoyed that. Let me check that out again. Then of course it went off again, and then when it came back with Christopher Eccleston again, I thought, I liked that. Let me have a look, see what this is all about.
Yeah.
And then that was so good, that first season, that it just hooked me, and I watched all of it in a weekend when I bought the DVD set. Because I'd only seen a couple of the episodes when they went out live, and then I was working and missed them. And then that was sort of really, when it hooked me again, and so it's kind of two, the original run, and then again, for the modern run, it's just always sort of been there, really, and like you said, like I watched the show, and I just can't hate anything in it. It just isn't me. I don't watch it to think, right, what do I hate this week?
You don't hate watch.
No,
you don't do that thing.
No,
right.
Rage quitting at it or anything. And I think there's occasionally stuff that it doesn't work for me. Maybe it doesn't mean it's bad,
but it'll work for other people, won't it?
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
Like, I'll be honest. I was the second half of Series 6, wasn't my favourite. I just kind of, the monsters weren't amazing in it, and it was okay. But that's fine. But other people love it, and
as we've seen from some of our Twitter responses, there's a lot of people who came into the show at that point, and that's their nostalgia kick, isn't it? That's the bit that brought them into it.
And I watched it back a couple of years ago, and actually thought it was better than I remembered it to be, and I enjoyed it far more. So there's always something to enjoy in an episode. I think the Doctor, always going to be brilliant. A companion, always going to be brilliant. There's always going to be something. So it's a show that I enjoy the adventure of it, the escapism, the sort of fantasy element. It's obviously not fantasy like dragons and stuff, but it's doing things in it's obviously science fiction, but it's crazy and it's out there, and the Doctor as a character, as it's a character like no other out there. With the approach to things, and the positive and the kindness and all of that stuff. So I think it's brilliant. So we've had quite a few responses here, haven't we, to our tweets. So I'm going to kick one off here. So this was kind of asking people, how they discovered it. What was the moment that made them, fall in love with the show? So Craig Lightoller, who's at CJ Lightoller, just said Transformers. That was my way in.
Oh, interesting.
And it was via Marvel being frugal in using their comic strips in multiple titles. So if you remember, that Marvel kind of published stuff at one point, didn't they? And so Craig must have seen Doctor Who comics in, I guess Transformers or, what Marvel stuff or whatever it was. And he must have thought, this is interesting. And so, it's quite cool to hear, about people kind of discovering it, not through the main system for it, the main show. Is that your private helicopter now?
It's just taking off now. Yeah. It just stopped. The pilot just needed a quick bite to eat before they get off again.
This is why we put out a subscribing thing, because Paul's fleet of jets need funding. That is a joke, people. Okay.
It's a joke.
He's only got one.
If I had fleets of jets, we wouldn't need any subscribers to pay for this.
So then we had a tweet from Paul Quinn, who's at Paul_L_Quinn. He said Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, and he said, and then Time and the Rani. I was switching on just as most people were turning off. And another.
There you go. There is a perfect example of a story that somebody, it's
unfairly
really not
maligned.
My favourite story. Yeah. I don't think it's unfairly maligned. I think it's horrific. But nonetheless, it is like somebody, that's their way into the show.
Yeah.
They, it got them at that point and they love it for it. And, I would never take that away from anybody.
And obviously something about that, worked for Paul brilliantly and triggered a passion for the show. And he said another major factor were the Target books as well. And I replied and said, you like the Target books as well.
Oh, man, yeah.
I guess... Paul, you'll have to tweet in and let us know if you're listening. But I guess when the show finished, you maybe kind of dive back in with the Target books and discovered things there. So this one here, you can read a couple of yours in a minute. I'll allow you.
It's all right. You crack on, mate.
This one. So this is Ape with Anxiety, who's at Shane Oid 77, and. Maybe you could have written this, to be honest, Paul. I grew up with it. I had a massive crush on the Fifth Doctor and cried my eyes out when he regenerated. And I said, so did you, Ash. I tagged you on that. Yeah. So so far, a couple of people kind of getting into it, in the classic era, which is great. So
that's because we're all old.
Yeah, that's because you're old. I'm just going to quickly scan. Oh, look, there's a modern one coming up. Yeah.
There you go.
So give us a couple of the ones that you've got there.
I've got some really good ones here, actually. I've got one from Thasmin and Jarin's podcast at Thazarin22, who says, I love it because it's unique and different and it's got a variety of characters. And then just go, I love it. Which is great. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Short and sweet, to the point. It's you can't argue with that, can you?
Do you know what? That's enough, isn't it? I love it. Like, really, what more justification do you need?
You don't need justification. If you love it, you love it.
No,
you can try and intellectualize it as much as you like, but at the end of the day, it's all an emotional reaction.
That's it.
That's what it is. And the things that we often value the most are those things that get us at that level, at an emotional level, rather than a rational level. You can be the most intelligent thinker in the world and apply reason to everything in order to justify what you do. But at the end of the day, if there's something you love it. Yeah, and you don't have to justify it. You don't have to intellectualize it, even, unless you want to.
I've certainly said that to you before, and probably on the podcast somewhere. But sometimes
you're always having a go at me for that.
So sometimes you just enjoy something. That's enough. I can't.
Really... Well, why do you enjoy it? How can you possibly? It's just shut up. I love it. It's
I can't really explain it. I can't. Articulate it. It just
don't need
causes
to.
an emotional response in me.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
That's
And I
it.
think it's that's the most important thing. I think in anything really, whether
Yeah,
it's
it should be
Doctor Who
fun.
or
Yeah.
whatever. It's something that you have an emotional reaction to, and it's a positive reaction. Then that's great. Get more
Yeah.
of it because
Yeah.
we need those little rewards.
Yeah.
Life's difficult enough, to be honest. So anything which gets us in that way is to be valued and cherished, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
So there's another one here. I can't pronounce that Twitter handle, but it's from @Mocha
Quackamocha.
Quokka Mocha. Is that what it is?
I
There's
hope so.
characters in there that I just have no idea how to pronounce. But they say nonetheless that I grew up with it. My parents worked and childcare wasn't really a thing back then, and in a rural mining village. So my uncle watched me and had no idea what to do with a child, so sat me in front of a Doctor Who VHS episode. I suppose it's a comfort thing for me, but it also shaped, there is another, my moral compass, I think. I also ended up studying law because Mum and I were tossing ideas about things to study. I had Trial of a Time Lord on and jokingly said law. But when we thought about it, that actually worked. So Doctor Who has always influenced my life in some way. That's a brilliant story, isn't it? I love that, how the most inconsequential thing, like Trial of a Time Lord being a trial, is influence in someone's going out and studying law.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I mean, there's a thing, isn't it? In what ways, I wonder, does, and maybe not just Doctor Who, but since we're on a Doctor Who podcast, we should probably focus on that. But, has Doctor Who influenced our lives? Do you think it's influenced you in any way, Jeff? What do you think?
No, well, I don't know really. I never really thought about it. I mean, I was, when it came back,
I was throwing that one at you. This isn't a
Yeah.
question we prepared. I just
No.
thought that one on the cuff because that's what I do.
I was already doing my filming stuff, so it wasn't like I watched it and thought, I want to get into doing that. No, I wouldn't say it's sort of I mean I obviously try to be kind and help people and all of that kind of thing anyway. But yeah, I suppose you could think WWTDD a bit more. What would the Doctor do?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, write that on your hand. Yeah.
Well, not you just keep it in your head.
I didn't write it on your hand. Get it tattooed. Permanent. It's a permanent Sharpie. That'll do.
Would you say that has it influenced your life?
I think it has in subtle ways. I think, like you said, some of the values, the positive liberal values, you can carry those in life, and if they inform how you kind of respond to things, so you take a moment, think back, or just respond with a joke, which I think I've said before. But I think actually one of the biggest influences probably had is in the realm of science. I've always been quite had an interest in science, and particularly when I was younger. But I never really did anything with it until probably I read the novelisation of Logopolis, and that bangs on about entropy and all sorts of stuff, and Boyle's second law of thermodynamics, and the idea of using a sound, solid, proven scientific ideal principle and wrapping it up in a tale of absolute fantasy and fiction to bring about the catastrophic end of the universe, I thought was extraordinary. I love that. I really do. And that got me interested in a lot of other stuff. And I ended up working on a college science magazine as a kind of, firstly as a little bit of a feature writer. And then I ended up I was kind of editing it, really. And whilst I didn't really pursue that so much, it's always been a really good hobby. And and there are times when I do get paid for that as well. I mean, I edit a few magazines even now and write for various others. So that's always been a thing. Whether that would have happened without Logopolis, I don't know, but it just gave me some sort of focus. And at a time when I was at school, when all the teachers were saying, well, what are you going to do when you grow up? Where are you going to leave? What's your career path going to be? And it's like, I really don't know, but then but I really like science. I'm not clever enough to actually be a scientist, but I like the ideas of it. I like I like that idea of exploration and finding out about things, and I like reading about other scientific principles, the stuff that people have worked on, Stephen Hawking, Einstein, Newton, all of that stuff, quantum theory, all of that. I just absolutely love it. I get really, really excited by it. And And whilst Logopolis, it just gave me a bit of focus really, and it's something I could aim that interest at, if you like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it sort of shows, I think, in a way, the difference between us. You're quite, approaching quite intelligently there, and I
wouldn't go that far.
I just like.
I wouldn't go that far at all, mate.
Whereas,
you throw that word at me, then it's going to be fisticuffs. Intelligent? How very dare you?
Whereas I just like monsters.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like monsters too.
Yeah.
You can't.
No, but
can't deny that.
there is. I do think that the show has a bit more to it, and there is a basis in, reality, particularly the historical angle, and some of the science stuff, and it often can work as a kind of metaphor for things that happening in our world.
And, like a lot of good science fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Often does.
I remember back from my college or uni days. Stuff often says more about the world that it's made in than the one that's set in.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to tell you, I've emailed you another soundbite from someone.
Have you?
That's just come in to include.
Let me grab that.
Whilst you sort that out, I'll just read out a couple more here, and then we can queue up one of our audios as well. So this is from Charlie Spoilers, who's at She Regenerated. And Charlie says, it took me a couple of tries to get into Doctor Who. People wanted me to, and I started with Rose. I was like, WTF, evil mannequins, not into it. But after a few months, I went back and gave it another chance. I watched a few episodes, and now here I am today. I fell in love with it all over again when 13 came into the picture. Yeah, I can relate to that, Charlie. I've never felt so represented as I have in her era. I absolutely love it and could go on. I love the show as a whole, but 13 will always have a special place in my heart. So yeah, that's quite interesting that Charlie took a couple of goes to get into it there, and I find that more with songs than I do shows. Well, actually, that's not entirely right. So sometimes you might listen to a song and you think, yeah, it's okay, but then I won't always kind of give up on a song if I listen and think, well, it hasn't quite worked. I'll listen again, and then you start to kind of peel back layers of it and find out what's underneath in the mix, and what's going on, and it then can start to kind of open up and reveal itself to you. And shows these days, I always think you've got to give them a couple of episodes for them to sort of find their feet, particularly, and get going. And I admit I have kind of broken my kind of approach there a couple of times. I watched a few things recently that haven't immediately grabbed me, and I think as you get older, time is more limited when you've got family and kids and things like that. And I'm not saying you need immediate grabbing, but if something doesn't quite work in the essence of, right, okay, I'm liking this enough to keep watching, and I think it could bloom into something good, so that's that. And then we've got one here from Brothers Mahoney, who's at Brothers Mahoney. Our father was a fan of the show, and at some point he bought the Three Doctors on VHS, which we watched multiple times as kids. We didn't know anything more about the show, but we did love the Three Doctors, so from the age of 6 or so, we were hooked. I also really like that these guys had no idea about it. Obviously their dad must have been into it. So Brothers Mahoney, I wonder if after that point did you get into the show more with your dad, or did it become something that you did together? How did all that go? But would love to hear a bit more. So I've got another tweet here, or a tweet from Will Hadcroft, who's at Hadcroft Will. But Will has actually sent us an audio clip, isn't he? So, Paul, would you like to load that up to play it now? And I'm going to do the same thing and listen to that at my end.
Here it goes, Mr. Jeff. Okay. I'm playing it now in 3, 2, 1.
I'm Will Hadcroft, author of the BBC audio original Doctor Who The Resurrection Plant,
he wrote
featuring the second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, read by Fraser Hines.
Read by Fraser Hines?
I was born in 1970. My earliest memory of Doctor Who is, I now know, the Chronivore from the Time Monster. I didn't realise for years later until I saw it on DVD. If that memory is correct, that places my earliest memory at 2 years of age.
2.
Proper memories begin with Tom Baker. I had a vivid nightmare about the Sontaran probe from the Sontaran experiment. Later on, I can remember walking around the school playground, arms outstretched, chanting "Kill the humans," having seen the robots of death. A couple of years later, with a friend of mine, I collected up 6 magnets that we'd found on some wasteland, and we pretended that they were the key to time. But for all of this time, from 1970 up to 78, Doctor Who was a favourite programme amongst a number of favourite programmes. But all that changed in 1979. Marvel Comics began publishing Doctor Who weekly, which meant that I got my fix of Doctor Who on a weekly basis, even when the show was not on air. In photographs and in a comic strip, I got to see the first 3 Doctors for the first time. I was absolutely bewildered when season 18 started in 1980, with the new title sequence and theme music, a new companion, and a boy for the first time in Adric, the departure of Romana and K9, the return and restoration of the Master, leading up to the Doctor's regeneration from Tom Baker into Peter Davison. And in November 1981, the 5 Faces of Doctor Who. From there on, Doctor Who was not just one of my favourite programmes, it was the favourite.
The favourite. Yes, I love that. There's a lot of things there in Will's little clip that I can totally relate to. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure about picking up magnets from a wasteland. That probably wasn't a safe thing to do in the 70s when your hair starts falling out and your teeth and everything else. Then it's probably not a great idea.
Even unsafer now.
But this is why things were great in the 70s, because health and safety was somebody else's problem, and people could just dump toxic shit in your backyard if they felt like it. In those days, binmen used to actually come around your backyard and all. But no, that's brilliant. I mean. It's funny, actually, he mentions the Sontaran probes, because that's probably one of my earliest memories of Doctor Who as well. That kind of freaky thing as it sort of wanders around the top of Dartmoor or something.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then season 18, yeah, absolutely. And the 5 Faces of Doctor Who. I cannot tell you enough how much I absolutely love season 18. It has never been bettered for me, ever, since it was out. It is, for me, the absolute pinnacle of Doctor Who. Is peak Doctor Who, if you like. And I never even saw all of it when it went out. I didn't see much of it until Warrior's Gate came along, and that was probably my moment, I think, because obviously I'd been reading the Target books up until that point, and I loved those completely. But they were my favourite books. But I used to read a lot of books, a lot of all kinds of stuff. But Warrior's Gate was the thing that really did it. And I didn't watch all of it, but I watched enough of it for it to kind of pique my interest. And then, as Will said there, throughout the rest of that, and then with the 5 Faces of Doctor Who, more Target novels, and then into Peter Davison. Yeah, that was it. I was kind of sold, if you like. But I didn't actually get the Doctor Who Weekly then, wasn't it? But I didn't get that until, I think, Colin Baker was a Doctor. I picked my first issue up from the Blackpool exhibition, and even then I only bought it infrequently, because I thought, I'm not buying a blooming magazine every month. That's ridiculous. I'm not that much into it. I was in denial, obviously, but it took me a few years, and then I did subscribe, and I think I've been a subscriber ever since.
Yeah. Have you got them all in the loft?
I've got a lot of them in the loft. I've got most of them. I don't think there's many missing, to be honest.
I've got a lot from the Matt Smith era. I think that's when I started subscribing, and previously I would buy it when it had a current episode cover, and then I just decided to sub to it, and I didn't read the comic strip in DWM each month, and then I bought one of the maybe a 10th Doctor collections, and I thought, why the hell haven't I been reading this? It's not like I wasn't getting,
Why haven't I been reading this?
Why? Because I got monthly orders of comics, Marvel stuff that I would read through. So it wasn't like I was like, ooh, comics. I was reading comics all the time. But I just didn't read the DWM one for some reason. So, I love that part of the magazine. So, Will, thank you for sending that clip
thanks,
in.
Will.
By the way,
Brilliant.
I could hear that, Paul, so I didn't
Oh,
need
could
to...
you?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
So whatever you did, it worked.
Press the button.
Right, there. Well done. So, would you like to read some of your tweets that you've got?
Go on then. Yes, I'm going to go with next one from Thomas Murch at Thomas John Murch, who says, adventures through time and space where smart, kind characters solve problems, make jokes and save people and defeat villains without just killing them. How could I possibly resist? Quite right. I like that.
Yeah.
And we've got Who's King Clive -the3rd at Who's _Clive. See, I can read underscores too.
Yeah, I can. I just don't like them.
Who says, I watched Doctor Who as a 5 to 6 year old in 1985 to 6 and have a vague memory of my favourite Revelation of the Daleks. Later on in the 80s, I got a Dapol 7th Doctor, TARDIS and Mel. But when I fell in love with Doctor Who was in 1988 when I was watching Remembrance of the Daleks and saw the Special Weapons Dalek, which we talked about.
We did talk about
essential Daleks, didn't
our
we?
previous episode, which was one of our essentials. If you haven't listened to those are ones where we focus on a doctor
Do it now,
or a monster and pick our favourites.
Yeah, we did that. Yeah.
Have you got another one you'd like to read? Or
I've got millions, mate.
Okay.
Yeah. Go on. I'll do this last one, then we'll go to you. So I've got one from here from Joe Halliday at Jojo Champion, who says, always connected with nostalgia, as it was always watched in our house. It didn't look like anything else on TV, and certainly didn't sound like anything else. It was a Saturday tea time treat.
Oh, yes.
That's an important thing as well, actually. The essential Saturdayness of Doctor Who. It's, I mean, again, in the Davison and the Davison era, it moved to a weekday slot.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it was always on a Saturday. And obviously, when it came back, I think Colin Baker with the Sixth Doctor, it came back on a Saturday, and then went back to a weekday with Sylvester McCoy. And obviously, when Russell T Davies brought it back, it was put back on a Saturday. Recently, we had it on a Sunday night with Jodie Whittaker, and be interested to see what they do. You know, how much of the Saturday nightness is essential to Doctor Who.
My tuppence on that is that I'd rather have the show any night of the week than not at all. It being on a Saturday doesn't make it any better than it being on a Sunday, and it being on a Sunday was quite a nice end of week treat. But I understand that on a Saturday you haven't got to go to bed early for school if you're young and all of that. So it's whatever. It's whatever. Whenever
See, I just queued up that as a massive nostalgia kick again.
Just give it to me.
Just trashed all over it. I take your point, actually, but I think, when I I mean, I think the whole Saturday nightness actually is a kind of relic of the 70s, and it's clearly a thing that I think John Nathan Turner was trying to break away from. He recognised that there was a big power in Doctor Who. It had a massive fan base, and it was really it had a massive fan base, and it was really, really popular.
Actually,
so it could go up against the likes of Coronation Street. He was wrong, actually. It wasn't that powerful, but nonetheless, it's quite a thing. But I think, the relic part of it is because Saturday night with the BBC, where it's obviously transmitted over here in the UK, but that was such a strong lineup back in the day, like things like the Generation Game, the occasional sitcom, and whatever else was out at the time. It was like when BBC and ITV literally battled for ownership of audiences, and the viewing figures were huge. Millions and millions of people. Not like it is now, where you'd be lucky to get 5 million for a prime time show.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about this, and the ratings discourse has gone on and on and on.
Yeah, I just don't get involved in it.
And I think it's fair to say that
everyone's an expert in that.
I think. And now I'm going to offer my expert opinion. Doctor Who is doing absolutely fine. When you actually look at the ratings for pretty much most things, you get the odd anomaly, like what was it, the Bodyguard or something, the one with the guy from Game of Thrones and Eternals, John Madden. Is that his name? No, he's a football player.
But I know you're talking about
Richard Madden. And
Rob Stark.
Yeah, and had a huge viewing figures. But those shows are anomalies. But our attention is split between terrestrial TV, hundreds of channels on Sky, hundreds of thousands of things on streaming, video games, Blu-rays, phones.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, your phones.
You don't have 4 or 5 channels anymore to watch for the whole country. You know,
Only 3 back in the 70s.
Exactly.
And most of the 80s, till Channel 4 came in.
Saying Doctor Who doesn't get the ratings it used to.
People's behaviours have changed.
Of course,
and
it's
the
not
whole
going
viewing
to. Yeah.
behaviours. And, we watch things more now at our own leisure.
Yeah,
when we want to watch them.
On that note, I posted about this on LinkedIn earlier, actually, because I was thinking about it. So
did it keep you awake at night?
Well, no, I saw that the second series of Loki is coming out on Disney later in the year, and they're doing it weekly, and then they're going to drop all of the Echo episodes, which was one of the characters in Hawkeye, and they're going to do those all at once. And people said it's either because it's terrible and they want to just get rid of it, or it's great and they want to try and,
people will always find reasons, won't they?
They will always
to
find
prove their opinion.
Yeah, but it got me thinking, and I like that Disney particularly do the weekly release thing, and I hope Doctor Who keeps that.
We talked about this in the previous podcast, didn't we?
Yeah, because then everyone is, pretty much on the same page. You've watched it. No one's, hit the whole lot before you. You've got cliffhangers that work. You can talk about it, around the water cooler. That was a thing that happened before everyone just lived at home and worked at home, But it just keeps people buzzing at the same time, and so I hope they carry on with that. So I'm going to read one here from Ron88Keys, and the handle is at Ron88Keys RBDM. I remember I was flipping through channels late one Saturday night in the 80s and landed on the PBS station in Arkansas, and the end of Brain of Morbius was on, and I was fascinated and oh so confused. The first full episode I saw was Robot, airing 1 part at a time weekdays, so, a little bit like we were saying there, it was weekly, That's great. And also, do you know what? I always like hearing about how people in America or Australia discover the show, because for them it was harder than it was for us to be getting hold of it.
Although also, just to correct you on something there, Jeff, I believe the correct pronunciation of Arkansas.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I'll point that out to you, mate. Always looking for a cheap win.
Well, that's not going to happen when we play the RPG. So this is Joe Whitby, who's at I Know Jojo. I was obsessed with the 1960s as a kid and knew Doctor Who was a big thing culturally, although I hadn't seen any. The Avengers was my passion at the time. I assume she means Steed and Peel, not Stark and Odin, son. So when the TV movie was announced, I was very excited. 11-year-old me was hooked as soon as the movie started. And I guess for Jo, if anyone knows Jo, she does some great Doctor Who artwork and things like that. It stayed with her enough to, inform her work as well. Well, I'll just read one more here, and then we'll go to you. So this is from And Then There's Anne, who's at Then There's Anne. The first time I saw an episode of The Revival, I was 18 and bored over the holidays. Grandma had cable TV, and Sci-Fi was doing a Doctor Who marathon, even though just the one new season had aired so far. I had no idea what a Dalek was, and yet the episode Dalek was so good that, even just halfway through the episode, I was in love. 2 phenomenal actors, Chris and Billy, and a tin can villain, and my life would never ever be the same again. I think that's brilliant. That just happened to catch it like that, and it,
accidentally.
And we talked about Dalek in our last episode, didn't we? And it's still such a strong episode all these years later, and I love that. Maybe And Then There's Anne had an idea of what the Dalek was, because it's such a prominent piece of kind of English pop culture, like the TARDIS itself is. But you know it, but you don't know what it is or much about it, But obviously, it's so strong that it hooked her. So
iconic,
brilliant,
yeah, brilliant. So I'm going to read one here from the Pink Medic at Pink_Medic, who says, "I really enjoyed the wonder of." I'll start that again. I really enjoyed the wonder of it all. I started with season 5. It was thrilling, terrifying, and I was fascinated by the mystery of River Song. By the end of S5, I was hooked on the Ponds and the Doctor, and to this day, River remains my favourite character.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Yeah, there you go. And there's another one here, which is a very short one from Ariana at Ariana3076, who says many reasons, but mainly because of this gentleman, and posted an image of the Valeyard from Trial of a Time Lord, played by the wonderful Michael Jason, I believe. I remember that.
Wonder what it was about him that got him into it. Was it you know, following the work before, or just happened to catch it and see that image and think, you know? Yeah. Do you know? I remember this just popped into my head. So I had some friends over from America some years ago. It was probably before my wedding, so it was about 10 years ago now, and. We just had the TV on at home. We were flicking through, and they knew that I liked Doctor Who, but they'd never seen it because it was obviously a bit harder to get out there. And happened to flick on the TV, and Christmas Invasion was on, and it was the bit where the 10th Doctor was sword fighting with the Sycorax, and his hand gets chopped off, and you know he regrows it. And I said, "Oh look, this is Doctor Who. This is a show I like." They went, "This is weird."
You like that shit, really? British, right?
But one of their grandkids in subsequent years got into the show, and Matt Smith was his favourite, and he was watching it all through Jodie as well, so that was really cool. Would you like to play another audio clip? We've got a couple more here, haven't we?
We've got one more. The other one didn't load. It doesn't like that format, sadly.
Oh, which one is that?
The last one you sent on AAC. So
is it?
But we'll slot it in.
Let me see if I can convert that quickly whilst you play this.
Go on then, you do that. This is from Max, I believe.
Yeah, Max
so
Blake.
let's play this one.
Hi there, Who Corner to Corner. This is Max Blake at Max Bloke on Twitter, replying to your question about where I fell in love with the show. I would say that the place where I fell in love with the show, I was in a hotel room in the UK. I had just moved there, and I was really struggling with the move and relating to anything in the UK, really, as I had just moved from Texas.
That's understandable.
And then I saw The Runaway Bride. It was a rerun at the time, as it was 2007 when I moved there. But I specifically remember loving the Rachnos. To this day, me and my family, we still quote, "My children," to each other. So it made a pretty heavy impact, and that's when I got into the show. So, yeah, I just wanted to give my 2 cents. I'm a big fan of the show, so it's a pleasure to be featured on it. Have a good one, y'all.
Have a good one too, Max. Thank you very much for that, my friend.
Thank you very
brilliant.
much.
My children. Imagine going around doing that.
Yeah,
Freak
that's
you out.
brilliant.
You're at a job interview. So why should you take this job? My children. Brilliant. You'll hide. Head of accounts straight away.
Do you know that? That's great that Max liked the Rachnos. That is still one of the most impressive prosthetics.
Totally.
And, creatures that they've done on the show. In
and when was it? 2007. So that's coming up for 20. Almost 20 years old.
Yeah, pushing it. Yeah,
still way off mine. I was like 15 years, but
still brilliant. Yeah. Max, thank you so much for sending that.
Thanks,
that
Max.
clip in.
Brilliant.
Paul, I've just emailed you the other clip as an MP3, which will hopefully work. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So whilst you look at that, I love this. Live. Interaction. So this is from Simon Hart, who's at Psy_Hart. My moment was seeing the trailer for The Leisure Hive and knowing that the show was suddenly coming back. It was full of strange images and looked weird and wonderful, and suddenly I couldn't think about anything else. I was 5 and a fan forever.
Brilliant.
Do you find that a lot of your waking time, there are Doctor Who related things bubbling away in the back of your head?
Oh, always. Yeah. Every single time. Yeah. Again, that probably goes back to just having those early Target novels inscribed in my psyche at a very impressionable age, and growing up with all the rest of it. Definitely.
So here's one from Scouse. I met Matt Smith.
Just drop that one in.
Yeah. I guess that was at a convention recently, so I would love to hear a bit more about that. And the handle is at underscore fishcustard11 underscore. And it says, when I saw the poster in the Echo of the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor, so that was the one that was used to promote Day of the Doctor, TARDIS is floating above the Earth.
Oh, yes.
And their
Yes,
faces
yes,
are either
yes. I know the one. Mhm.
I was sitting on my dad's knee and I said, I don't like him, in a very classic Doctor Who fan way, and then I fell in love with Matt's Doctor. I was 5 or 6. We've had this a couple of times before where people have said quite distinct memories of, dads. It's quite often dads, actually, isn't it? That sort of pass it on, but sitting on my dad's knee is, that must be kind of burnt in there.
Not in my case. My dad hated it. He always turned it over, especially when season 18 was on. I just remember he said, I'm not watching this shit. Get up and turn the telly on and watch Will Madeira instead. Which I didn't mind. I quite like that. Buck Rogers in the 25th century. It was quite good fun, Yeah, and that's interesting as well, actually, when you think about it. You've got this glitzy, glamorous American show full of laser beams and action and all the rest of it. And running up against it is season 18 of Doctor Who, which, if you don't like it, can be thought of perhaps as a little bit dreary, certainly in comparison to the glamour of things like Buck Rogers. But you know what? I've watched Buck Rogers recently, and for me, it's on the one hand not as glitzy and glamorous as I thought or seem to remember. Some of the stories actually are quite intense. It's mostly, a lot of the better stories are actually big character pieces, and there's more of them than I thought. All the glitzy, action-packed ones are a little bit shallow, to be honest. So interesting, just perspective of time there. I'll just throw that one in for a bit of a laugh. Wasn't very funny, to be honest. Maybe won't bother again.
Well, yeah, thanks.
Just don't do that again. But yeah, my dad never liked Doctor Who. He was never.
Yeah, my dad wasn't into it. No. Right, I'll read a couple more out, then I'll hand back over to you.
Go on, Em.
So this is from Chris Russ, who won, which is his username.
Oh, are there multiple Chris Russes?
There might be.
Might
maybe
be.
Chris can tell us.
Like clones.
Maybe it's
clone army of Chris's.
Chris R Us. So
franchise, a franchise of Chris's.
For me, was the first episode I watched, which was Rose, when the Doctor grabs Rose's hand and says, run. A couple of years into the revival, I was buying the classics on DVD. So Chris is a big fan. He goes to a lot of conventions, doesn't he? He meets a lot of
Yeah, we like Chris. Yeah.
So I always like seeing what he's up to. Kelly, who's Kelly E. Rosen, says, I was 18 when I started watching, and I started with 9. There were 2 moments in his season that made me go, oh, I get it. This is special. The last scene in Dalek with 9 Rose and the Dalek, and just this once, everybody lives in the Doctor's in the Doctor dances.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And then I'll just do one more here. Then this is Matthew, disciple of Brad. From the first episode I watched as a kid, when 10 has the fight with the Sycorax on Christmas Day. Something about the craziness of it all had me hooked. Well, it didn't work for my friends in America, Matthew, but I'm glad it worked for you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right, over to you.
Okay, so I've got another one here. Where am I? Vertigo Fox at Ottery Menace, who says in 2011 or 2012, I borrowed Series 5 from my uncle for ... reasons. I forget why. My brother and I liked it, wanted to see more. Our uncle had almost the whole 4th Doctor run that he taped and transferred to DVD. Wow, that's commitment there. He lent that to us, and that's when the show really clicked. I like that story. So again, not so much a dad, but an uncle in this case. Craig Lightowler.
Oh, has he commented again?
He's commented again. I thought it was the same tweet, actually, but no, it is a different one, actually.
Let's have that as well.
Let's have this one. So Craig adds to the previous one by saying, in 88, I chanced on a Marvel bumper special comic which reprinted Crossroads in Time, which has Death's Head, a character I enjoyed. Meet the 7th Doctor crossover there. He outsmarted the bounty hunter. I like that. And then the toys appeared. Then in 1989, I committed to watching. Yeah.
Nice. ...
Quite the whole thing. That's brilliant.
Oh,
that's actually me.
That's Paul's phone.
Yeah.
So I'll read out a couple here quickly. So Giltzer, who's at Dennis Gill 10, just says, watching the series for Omnibus on CBC, got to love the main show and the spin-offs. I think he means like he grew to love the main show and the spin-offs because he's a big Sarah Jane fan. Amanda Lorian, who's at Amanda M8810, says, I can't remember a specific moment, but whenever I figured out that it was a way for me to go on adventures too, life's a mess, you know. I wish I could go with a doctor and see all sorts of places and times, but since I haven't been chosen yet, watching along is a wonderful escape. And I think we probably all feel a bit like that, don't we?
At times, indeed.
Yeah. Salty Space Squirrel, who's at Salty Squirrel, says, I was about 5 years old, running to hide behind the couch, shrieking with delight. Daleks were involved. Brilliant. Marigold, who's at Gaillardia Fever, says, it was so long ago I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure it was Ark in Space. I'm watching it again, and while I can't find one moment, it just confirms, of course, I fell in love. And then I've just finished my couple here. James H, who's at FitGeek_UK, says, after much consideration, it was a Five Faces repeat, I think. Second mention of that.
That was very special.
Yeah. And then Melina at Melina Vader says 2010. It was the year my mum passed away and I started watching it. I'd never heard of the show and I never knew what it was about. All I knew is that my TV production professor told us to watch it. Started with Eccleston, of course, and continued on. It was my escape.
Brilliant.
So that's lovely. Right, have you got a couple more there?
I do. I've got literally a couple more. You couldn't script this, could you? Actually, so that's quite nicely rounded. So I've got Ape with Anxiety, Shanoid77, who says infinite storytelling. That's it. Another short to the point.
That'll do.
And then we've also got the marvelous apparating lady at Apparating Lady, who says, after struggling with major depression, Doctor Who has been very supportive of my therapy. This show gives me comfort and hope. It is full of wisdom and teaches a lot about compassion and humanity. It makes life more interesting because there is always something to discover and learn. I think that's brilliant. I really like that one. That's something that you again, we've always said in this show that Doctor Who often touches on a very deep, very personal level, and I think there's no greater illustration of it than that tweet there and a couple of the ones that you read out. It's it's nice to know that a show can actually reach us in that way and be really positive in it as well. Helping us get through some dark times and find the light of positivity and hope and everything else, and that's really, really nice. The show is, whenever I watch it, it cheers me up, and or listen to it, read it. It gets excited.
Yeah, it just has a special power.
Gets me excited like often as well. I get very excited. As Frey would often tell you.
Yeah. Now, do you have another audio clip to play?
I do. I have one more audio, the one you sent to me, which it didn't like originally, but now it does. It's uploaded, and this is from, who is it from, actually, Jeff?
This is Tony Filer.
Tony Filer, yes, who's been on our show before, hasn't he?
Yes, in a Meet the Whovians.
Meet the Whovians, that's it. So let's listen to what Dr. Love Filer says.
The thing about Doctor Who is it can be anything and everything, and it's always evolving. So, there are any number of moments when people fall in love with it, and the same person can fall in love with it 100 times along the way, and I think that's certainly true in my case. The first story I saw go out live was Destiny of the Daleks, and I distinctly remember the moment when Tom Baker, as the Fourth Doctor, is just lying insouciantly beneath a boulder, critiquing a book that he happens to have brought for the occasion, and it's just like, this is one joyous little madman I can get behind, and I've been a fan ever since, obviously, so that shows you something. But I mean, there have been so many moments since then. I sort of fell in love with the Fifth Doctor during Fort of Doomsday, of all stories, when he uses the Earth culture displays to plot against Monarch, kind of underneath the radar. I'm thinking, that's where you know that the Doctor is still there behind whatever face. It's that thing of, we're going to be okay. This person has got our back. And I mean, you can go through, there have been so many moments, as I say. It's really any time you watch a scene and you go, oh, there you are. There's my Doctor. And you kind of fall in love with the show all over again, I think. David Tennant yakking away on the Sycorax spaceship. Matt Smith going, what the hell, in A Christmas Carol, and going down the chimney. Peter Capaldi's not on my watch speech in the Zygon invasion, Jodie Whittaker's travel hopefully speech from the Battle of Thingamy Doodah. It's any moment that really makes you reach out from your existence and think of something bigger and better and brighter and more possible. And there are so many of those moments in Doctor Who, so that's really my answer. You find new moments with almost every story, certainly with every Doctor. And long may it continue.
Quite right. Bigger, brighter, and more hopeful.
Yes.
Was that what we said? Brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. That's actually worked out really nicely. That came in there and just in time, and it's quite a good little wrap up for this chat.
Yeah,
I think, actually, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you. This has been really nice to sort of, well, to talk about Doctor Who again, but to kind of find out.
A bit indulgent. Why not?
Well, why not? You know,
Exactly.
we we all love the show, and talking about it in that way is brilliant, really. So, thank you to everyone who's submitted their stories for us, and we hope you all enjoy listening back to this. I'm just going to say quickly, so this episode will be going out on Sunday the 21st. And you may or may not have seen, but we're running a competition at the moment on our Twitter page, which closes on the 24th.
Do the competition.
It's to win a digital copy of the 13th Doctor sourcebook for the Doctor Who RPG game. So we are. I'm currently kind of reading up on the rules and everything, and we're getting ready to.
I had a read.
Play a game. Yeah, I think it's going to be good fun. You kind of basically make a story and kind of play through it, tell it through.
So you had a role within the program.
Yeah,
and you played that role in a game.
Yeah.
Like a role-playing game, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it, really. Yeah. So by all means, please enter the competition. You just got to follow us if you don't already, and if you do, then that's all good. Like it and retweet it, and then we'll be picking our winner.
That's
we're gonna
all you have to do.
That's it. It's pretty simple. We're gonna have some more competitions coming up soon as well.
Yeah, we got some good ones.
Those might require a bit more involvement, but you'll
don't give it all away, Jeff.
No, I'm
stop
not gonna,
right there.
I'm not going to say.
So watching for that, you know.
Yeah, I'll blurb it all now. So thank you once again, everyone, for your contributions, for listening, and for supporting us and joining us on our podcast. And so we will catch you next time.
Yay! Until then, bye for now.
Bye.